But right now,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone to the fourth in our grand lecture series with Donald Jackson. I'll start by sharing my screen and welcome you all as I have been on these other lectures. So here we are. The Society for Calligraphy is very happy to present our 2021 Masters Lecture Series with Donald Jackson, Painting with Words. From Royal Scrolls to the St. John's Bible, have I had my breakfast yet? Master calligrapher Donald Jackson shares lessons and insights from a lifetime of working in letters. So today is September 25th, and Donald will be discussing Facing the Demons, which we all have done. What next? Where will these marks I am making take me to? The role of playing with letters with an open heart. So I'm moderator Kitty Marriott, founder and former president of the SFC and an honorary life member. And this Zoom was arranged by Christy Darwick, a former president of SFC. So she's doing the technical work and she's magnificent at it, of course. So we asked last time if some of you would be interested in sending tribute pictures for Donald to see for all of the wanderings that he's done around the globe. And so Christy found this beautiful photograph of Society for Calligraphy members who attended the Seattle Letters Conference in 2018, where Donald spoke about the St. John's Bible. So those of you in the SFC could possibly find yourself in this beautiful photo. Sorry. And Marita Sheeran. I'm sorry, I can't read my, get that out of the way. From Marita Sheeran, Donald's papal knighthood in June of 2016 at Westminster Cathedral, not the Abbey. So she sent several pictures, which you will enjoy. So not sure why, there. And so this is also from Marita, a picture of Donald with his family and friends at Westminster Cathedral. Donald, is that, I know that's Mabel to your side, is that young man between the two of you your grandson? You'll have to tell us later.
Yes.
Oh, good. You can tell us right now. Yeah. Do you want to say anybody else that's there?
Well, that's my brother at the side of me, younger brother, and my grandson on my right, as looking at you, Mabel, Lily, and Carmen, daughter, and her daughter is Lily. And on the other side, my son Morgan and his partner Narina.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, I keep on hitting the wrong button. There. No. There. And Nancy, you'll love this picture. You sent me a copy too, so thank you very much. But I just love this picture of Nancy with Mabel. So that's Nancy Ochita Howells on the right and Mabel on the left. And my goodness, is that the perfect hat for this wonderful ceremony. Just think this is maybe one of the two best slides I've ever seen. And then Bev Allen sent this. I'm sorry, this thing is in the way. I'm going to move that again. So this is from Bev Allen. This was an invitation done by Marvin Jackson from the book tour of 1981 when Donald Jackson visited Vancouver, Canada. Just beautiful, beautiful lettering. And also from her, another book signing. Somebody wanted to say something? Okay, so everybody should be muted except for Donald and me. So from the book tour of 1981, oh, we just said that when Donald visited Vancouver. Just a wonderful, my goodness, how many people did he do that for? And then this article in the Vancouver Sun about his visit to Vancouver in 1981. And some from William Davidson in Berkeley. William says, or Bill, I am at left front. In Oakland, I was at left back, and you'll see that next. These were week-long workshops that Donald gave after Mount St. Mary's. So I'm thinking that's maybe 1975, 76.
Probably.
Yeah. And here, Bill Davidson again in Oakland, He was left back. And again, these were the week-long workshops that Donald gave after Mount St. Mary's. And this is maybe the best picture I've ever seen in my life. Donald and myself at St. John's University, the first one. And I must have told a pretty good joke. He and I do get along. So Donald, you've been captured. Absolutely so happy. And Donald Jackson and Mabel and Jane Borchards and Carol Dubois and so on in this picture with those you can read who are seated. This is a gathering at Joe White's house in Minneapolis just prior to the opening of Donald Jackson's Painting with Words at the Minneapolis Institute of Art in 1988. And from Barbara Close, I'm sending a picture I cherish when we were at the Washington Conference a few years ago. So many great years of calligraphy and friends, some of the nicest, most amazing people I've ever met. Thank you so much for these wonderful lectures. From Lily E. Sloan, students in Suzanne Moore's class, Donald Jackson, of course, on the left, Larry Whitson, Nancy Pickett, Nancy Galligan, and kneeling Ronaldo Pizarro. And also from Lily, Suzanne Moore and Donald Jackson. She says, I was in a class with him in 2018 at the Seattle Letters Conference in Bellingham, Washington. Suzanne Moore was the instructor and he was one of the students, which we heard about in the last lecture. From Lily also, Nancy Galligan on the left and Donald Jackson working the table during the show and share. And from Anne Krusch, Donald with Anne Krusch and Yuki Tanaka of the Valley Calligraphy Guild in Eugene, Oregon. I think that's it, all I had time to manage to get in there. So as usual, you know, you can select your questions by putting 3 question marks in front of your chat. So if you'd go into chat, then you can, let me send that, return, no. There. So I'm just putting also in the chat the link that I was lacking last time in case you wanted to visit or join us on October 2nd in the Zoom with all of the binders. And then I've also put my blog on there just in case you wanted to see that. There are lots of things written on my blog, which is slowly getting updated since being sort of shot in the foot for a long time. So welcome everyone. We're very glad to see you as always. And now it is time for Donald to give his presentation. So thank you everyone. Now it's to you, Donald.
Good evening. Hello everybody. I was just enjoyed watching the pictures. Last week I sort of somehow they got rather tired. I went into too many questions, too many big questions, good questions, and I sort of drained my energy by the time we got to the end. I did view the last week's presentation, and I was a little bit sort of shall we say, made me feel a little bit quiet when I saw how forgetful I am of names and things like that. I can't blame COVID. I will do. I'm quite happy to blame anything, but I think it's just I was losing the will to live, perhaps at the end when I keep talking too much. Now that's me. I admitted I can talk too much. That is something some people have been waiting to hear from me for a long time. So let's start where we normally do here. I just want to first of all introduce you to the Carlos, who's in charge of the filming and keep making sure we're connected this end, and Sarah, who celebrates 19 years working in the scriptorium in a couple of weeks' time. And she's still here, so that's thank goodness for us that she is. And so she helps put stuff together for us all for these sessions. So let's start with the picture where we are, please. This is in the UK, has been a lovely autumn day, and getting very like this actually. And this is where we all used to live and here, and we moved into the studio, and part of the studio that I'm sitting in is right here, with Sarah and Carlos, and it's good to know you're all out there. And I'll try tonight, or I keep saying tonight, we try now to try and bring you into the process of making the St. John's Bible, not a sort of this and this and this picture says this picture means that, theologically or that. I mean, to say what it means to me and how I got to do it, and where the idea came from, where the struggle was, and the challenges, and also here and there where the technicalities are of interest. So I've picked up the idea. You will have picked up the idea of my sort of journey so far. How we started off in the little church school in amongst the factory chimneys and so on, and went through learning, studies, and working for a living within the lettering arts. And so you'll have also picked up that what I was trying to say in all of that sort of background to our lives was that we are actually all the time gaining memories. We're gaining memories with our experience of what we find, what we feel in our families, in our colleges, our life experiences where we've made big mistakes, quite good things, some not so good things. And all that time, what we're doing is, and I'm asking you to believe me, we are our memories. What we do is our memory. Every action that we decide to take, we do it calling on this database here, the database in our bodies. And so what does that mean to us as calligraphers? It means that is what you have to feed. You have to gather, you have to bring into yourself, not necessarily sort of in a neatly typed order, it is actually absolutely embraced by you. These things, even before our birth, are being taken on. We are, each one of us, unique. And so in a way, what I'm really trying to say is that the message is to everyone, whatever stage you're at in doing calligraphy, what you find is that the keynote thing is, I didn't know I had it in me. Now, tonight, I'm going to be showing you things where the design came, the mark came. I didn't know I had it in me. I was taking on things I didn't know how to do. You don't know what's in you. It's there. And that part of you, which is we call the sixth sense, the one thing that in school and college and everything else, we're never asked to think about. Somehow it's mentioned, but we're talking all about the other five, etc., etc. But it's the sixth sense that makes us do what we do with the other senses. And so when we do calligraphy, we're actually cultivating something. We're cultivating an awareness of a special kind, and we are very special because what we bring to it is only we can at whatever point in time. So that's my actual reasoning for showing the things tonight that I am going to be doing, encouraging you to look at and value and trust your own memory bank. And let's then start about this thing. How is it that it came to be? There's a whole background story to how the St. John's Bible came to be. Part of it is in my life, some of the things you've seen grow, things I've done over the years, have sort of been training me for that, whether it's traveling across, and as you saw on the some of the visits and meeting so many people in the US and teaching and being around and doing the various things that I've done. All of them have helped me understand and how to communicate with, in this case, US people, because let me tell you, it's very easy to lose communication and miscommunicate over 4,000 miles. If you're talking to theologians, professional theologians, at one side of the Atlantic, and me in my uneducated way, but mostly coming from trying to capture what they mean me to capture. And that meant that there was a lot of second guessing going on and consulting my sixth sense. And so that is partly a story of that, but a huge story there. But I don't want to go into all of the details beyond, first of all, to say, it required a huge, courageous step of faith on behalf of an institution, an exceptional act of institutional courage, actually. Institutions are not noted for being courageous, they're being cautious. And nobody who was anything other than slightly mad, as by their own admission, would never have commissioned something that hadn't been done for over 500 years on this scale, without any idea what the budget might be, whatever the whole involvement, how it might get them into trouble even. There's so many mistakes you can make and so many people you can upset in working with a Bible, that they took a huge risk, and they had an exceptional leader, and he saw the potential to unite the community of an abbey in St. John's in Collegeville, Minnesota, behind this concept. And this was the goal, that they asked me to try to fulfill, which was to ignite the spiritual imagination, to create something with a team of people who had always been envisioned that would make people think, draw them in to the words, draw them into to thinking, and giving them permission to have their own ideas about what was going on, because they all have different ideas. We're all unique about what they were looking at. So, let me just see. I'll come to that now in a second. I'm going to break off a minute. I'm not making any excuses for going on a lot at the beginning here, because, by the way, you are going to have to work really hard tonight, because I've got quite a lot of images. I'm banking on the fact that many people who are interested in calligraphy and so on can actually handle quite a lot of images. They can absorb quite a lot, because you're used to having to look, and that's what you're going to have to do. But before I do say, I'm going to make one little story. I did say I wasn't going to go into how this all came about, but I have to tell you, you obviously realize the thing had to be paid for. I had to sell my graphic design calligraphy business in order to make space in our lives to do it. There was a lot of writing on it. But you will also have found out about me that I also tend to leave things to the last minute. And I had this little story starts before the Bible started. I had, with my colleagues here, had worked out a schedule of how long it would take to do X amount, how many people it would need, how much money it would need to pay everyone, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was all pretty much not a shot in the dark, but it pretty much was gloomy looking at it all. And I was at the point when I just pulling everything together, and I was actually working on legal, this kind of thing, and just like this is stuck together with a little Scotch tape and lots of Tipp-Ex where I was adjusting, how many days would go here, how many days go back. And then it so happened that I had a long planned trip with my son, Morgan, who you saw a picture of earlier. He was in his 30s then, and he'd said we should go on a road trip, and we had planned it. And I left with a bunch of notes with all of the budgets and everything with me, and left. I can hear somebody talking in the background, and I left to go to Scotland, at the very north of Scotland. And the point of this story, I'll have to speed up, is this. We're going to remote places. We're going to the Isle of Skye and up to the Hebrides. We're going 600, 700 miles, not very far in the North American continent, but it is quite a long journey for us. And we ended up at night in a place called Oban on the coast, a little shipping village, little fishing village, and maritime activities. And I had received a call earlier that day from Father Eric Hollis in Minnesota, who said, where is the budget? We are meeting with the Board of Regents tonight, and we have only one opportunity to present this, how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take, and I need it. And I am in the north of Scotland with the darkness falling, the whole town gone to sleep. The whole town is a very small village. And I went into a pub with my son, and I sat in a corner and finished this whole thing off. About 8 pages of handwritten, Tipp-Exed, the whole deal. And I thought, how am I going to get this? Now, this is hard to imagine now. We are now talking, what, 1997? Remote phones, sorry, how you do it. And there are no immediate sort of access to, there was no internet as such that we, everyday person, used. There was a fax. And I actually, we were staying in a bed and breakfast, old house, very tall. And as darkness fell, the landlord we'd seen earlier, and I thought, how am I going to find a fax, an office bureau or something that could send this to the US? I had hours, that's all. And I went up the stairs, knocked on the door of the landlady and landlord, and they had a great big kitchen. And I said, can you help me? I need to send a fax. Do you know anybody who would be able to send it for me? I mean, I'll drive anywhere. I'll go 30 miles or whatever. And they both looked at each other and they said, you better come in. And I walked into their kitchen, and on their big kitchen table was a packing case opened, and out of that, sitting on the middle of the table, was a brand new fax machine that they just finished reading all the instructions to install. And I said, oh, could I send from that? And they said, it would be great to be able to send the first fax 4,000 miles to see if it works. And that is how the Bible started. It started by me procrastinating to the point where I was able to hand it over to you, put your own name on it. And the first person I asked had a brand new machine there. So that was a good start to both the Bible Project and a wonderful holiday with my son. So I put that one in. I don't want to tell any more stories other than that, but I thought it's important enough because it was important to me at that point. Now, I was in the dark, I thought, but I wasn't alone. I found help, and that's the way it has been all along, one way or another. I've been able to rely on good artists who work together to pull it off, and you'll find all that technical stuff, the whole making of the Bible and the people involved and what they did and what they didn't do, beautifully described in Christopher Calderhead's books, both the first edition and the second edition on illuminating the word. That tells you all and probably more than you need to know. But what was the task in hand? The task in hand was to using handwritten words, every one of them handwritten. That's the basis of the project. It's the words themselves, what it's saying, and the way, and a way to persuade you to enter into that world of words that in this Bible, and to linger, and to find gold and color, and it's there. Our job was to put that there in a way which draws you in, and that's one of the reasons why we do what we do in the way we do it. The work of the hand, the spirit and the energy of them, the flicker of gold, which moves every time you move, whether you turn a page, if you're lucky enough to be able to have your hands on that particular page, book, or if you move around it past it in a museum case behind glass. Your reflection, it's your reflection that's in it, and that is intriguing. Gold has got a me, look at me quality to it. It draws us. And then once you're there, you find that the most important thing is that the light and color in it is you. It's you that's being reflected in it. You have just brought yourself into that. And that unique person with all this this unique data bank will create a relationship with you. That was our job, was to create a relationship which would make you want to stay. You are part of it. You bring what you bring, makes it what it is. Right, well, let's get started on the process. And you bring yourself to it, and we'll see if we can get that in on somewhere near on time. We'll run on a bit, and I'll deal with as many questions as I can when we're through. The biggest challenge was to create an alphabet that I could live with myself, and which hit a particular note, which was serious enough to live up to the contents, and to be, as it were, rich enough in shapes and to sustain many, many lines of writing. And I was struggling to hit that note. My eyes immediately go to the bad letters in this. I couldn't decide how to do letter G. I wanted to do a different G, then it had to be formal, not a sort of italic kind of G, which this is not stripped down. There's more going on in it than in your average italic. And it's a bookhand. So it had to have those qualities, but I wasn't hitting the note. And it's very tricky to get right consistently and so on. Next, please. And then I started to get there though, and I started to feel that, and I say feel because how you register whether something is right or wrong for you is not in your head. It's physically, it's round about the thorax there. You are feeling it just below the rib cage, part between your gut and your heart. And that sort of feeling says, yes, we all know that feeling. And that is what I was trying to work towards. Long process of negotiation with publishers of the or the owners of the copyright of the new revised standard version to be able to get rid of indented paragraphs so that we could have good registered right lines. But then we had to work out ways in which that could be designed. And I can remember talking, that's just next, and moved on. And to try, having got having got that, having hit that particular harmonic of what I felt that quality should be, we had to organize it throughout the whole of the volumes. And I can remember talking at an earlier conference in New England with Julian Waters and I think Thomas Ingmar and maybe even Dennis Brown. And I said, well, I mean, all you have to do, I imagine, is to create 2 lines, and then flow the contents of the disk that we've been sent from the US into it. And very Julian's very polite way, which he always has, he said, I don't think you're going to find it is going to be as easy as that. And he was right. But we managed to mimic that text that I'd written enough to get a reasonable working chance of hitting the similar line lengths. It wasn't trying to imitate the script. It was just trying to imitate how many digits fitted within that column. And so away we went. The green was there because that has more digits in it than a certain number. We have a certain minimum we created, a certain maximum, and we couldn't go too much over that. So that means when the scribe comes along to copy this, he starts at master, the green line, and he knows he or she has got to watch their step because they're going to run out of space at the end because that's a tighter one. So that was the working thing that we started with. Next. And then this is only I would be talking like this to calligraphers because, or those interested in calligraphy, there are so many different variations. You don't just have page after page of text. You have a lot of poetry. You've got the Psalms, which is all poetry. You've got the wisdom books, which is almost all poetry, but you've got to be able to work the two together. Now, if you do too slim and italic, with a lot of those short lines, you're going to end up with a very weak-looking page. So I had to create an alphabet which was less formal. The G's are the kind of G's, if you can see them. Well, I've mixed the two there, but I immediately see. But it's a lighter weight than the text, but it's built up a bit so that it would fill out the lines. Then you've got to be able to design it. So Psalm 119, which somebody did ask me what my favorite psalm was, that happens to be it actually, so I'll mention it now. And I think it was, so that only has one little line under it, whereas Psalm 17 has got 5. So I had to be able to design it with Vin Gaudier, my computer guy to be able to somehow or other accommodate them. So many really fine decisions have to be made. So there you have it. Poetry, some of them are too long. You can't just decide what to, just keep on going and go to the next. That's poetry. It has to start at a certain point. It has to be indented so far, and so on and so forth. A lot of parameters which we had to work through before we could actually say, let's get going. Next. Also, there's another calligraphy challenge insofar as there are parts where you have to up the volume. So we call those special treatments, and they needed to be more emphasized, in other words. So, but those have got to be done that actually have a nice relationship with the regular text. Not always easy. Next. And so once you've decided all of that, you've got the alphabet, you've got it transcribed into computer using Zap's San Vito in a multiple master font. And this is going back so far. I mean, it was the first computer I'd ever had, and it was a big Mac, pardon the pun. And he tweaked it to be able to push it through the columns. Now I can see I'm going to get into too much detail, so let's not do that, because the temptation is there. Yeah, well, having organized that, we then you have to then imitate. You have to fill the white spaces where you have to decide what kind of fun you're going to have in the spaces where that you have special quotations. With the this particular piece, you can see me trying. There's 3 different kinds of lettering, and I don't know what's coming next. Can I have the next, please? Can I go back to the other? Thank you. And the other thing too was, how do you hand that over to somebody else? Because I couldn't do it all. And I was experimenting to see what kinds of text and weights and things we wanted. And in this case, Sally Mae Joseph did it in completely in raised gold in the what is it? Magnificat, thank you. And so she did the whole of it, not doing it like any of them, more like the middle one, but doing it with her adaptation of it, which is the next, please. And then, of course, having done all of these things, tried these different ways, those sorts of textures and things played out into the Bible. So you've got your main text, poetry, special treatments, and some things called incipits, which usually happen at the beginning of everything. And these are sorts of different kinds of scripts that developed for filling in to make in bring up a particular quotation that my clients wanted. And so I developed a kind of written capitals. Those are built up quite sort of spontaneously on the left. On the right, I developed something where you could actually write it, but it had enough substance to hold its own, as I'm fond of saying, and changing the colors a little as we went. But I did a lot of that because I had to do a lot of special treatments particularly in the Revelation, letters and revelations. And it had to be something that was written, not drawn. Subtle distinction. Something which has got the spring of the pen in it and of a written letter form, and keeps some of that life in it, rather than something which has been very carefully constructed and drawn. And then that spills over into other things like other types of lettering needed, book headings at the top of these columns that we've created. And I actually changed over time the Gospel according to St. John and Matthew there were the first two out of the first, I suppose, four, obviously the four Gospels. But I found myself doing it more light and precious, and in some kind of way, jewel-like on the later ones. And that does happen. The whole book changes as it goes through next. And so that sort of thing is how you pull all of them together. You've got your columns, you've got the special treatment where it's a sort of proclamatory beginning. You've got the beginning of the good news, and then you've got this substantial claims at the beginning of it, and then it subsides into the information next. So this is what happened in the end. This is how we got into a rhythm. Printed out all of the things. You can see where there's the right kind of, if you come at the front, the bright spots are rectangles are probably all where you've got book headings, different books, which you were just looking at. And the others are gaps, which are then divided up, and some were decided that I would do, and some that other people would do, and so on and so forth. Then, and the scribes would have, those are miniature versions of the full-size copies. That yellow seat there with my name, which was painted on it by Charles Pierce, must have been, I think, done at the 1996 Servi Textus gathering at St. John's, where everyone received one of those. Joe White had got cheap from one of the kind of modern versions of the 5 and 10 stores. So that's a trophy from that. So a little bit of the one of our gatherings in Wales. Next, there's a lot going on here. This is how it comes up. You've got that text is written by, I am guessing from the look of it, tricky to see. It's tricky to say. The good thing is, it's very tricky to tell between. I'd need to see a bit more. But you've got to be balanced by these little notes. There is a chapter number, which is a very rare, that is a number in the side. So everything there, those what we call bullets are red and blue. That's a paragraph beginning. And the number of the paragraph is number 2. Number 1 is obvious. And so every one of those things, the lettering, the alphabetical references on the left had to be worked out. There's got to be little letters over. Nothing's accidental there, not at all. It's all been agreed. That is where that goes, and that's how you keep that regularity and rhythm and harmony throughout the whole thing. Even down to a little symbol there, which refers to the rule of St. Benedict, RSB, that cross, was taken by me from the bell tower of St. John's Abbey. They have that cross on there, on the top of it, and I made the little RSB symbol have a meaning for them as a Benedictine community. Next. But once you've decided on all these things, it's another thing to be able, once you've organized the information and everything, it's another thing to be able to do it right. And these are warm-up sheets. This is a warm-up sheet on the left where I've been practicing. And look how different the same few words end up looking if you make a wrong, if you're spacing, if you haven't got into the rhythm of the spacing. Look how it varies. And you have very little opportunity to make abbreviations. Latin, you can abbreviate till it's almost, non-existent, but the person who knows his Latin or her Latin knows what those abbreviations mean. You don't do that in English. We can only squeeze the odd few here and there. And we had quite a lot of time working out what worked and what didn't. And sometimes it didn't, but you can see that's me not getting into it. You have to just keep on at it until you get that rhythm. And here we have somebody who knew exactly how to do it. This is Brian Simpson, who was at college with me with Irene Wellington. And you can see this is what goes on. You have the printed thing above you and you eyeball it and write it, and you hit the line at the end if you're him or the others. And that means discipline. It means quietly getting on with it and putting your neck on the line. If you really, really look at it, it does look quite clumsy, but in fact, it's very small. It's no good measuring it. You can't put two lines so that you get it all the same height, because it would never be the same height. It's just too small. You have to cut that quill to where it feels sweet, and in that same part, that same feeling, and in your hand, and go for it. And here we have the gang. We started with Brian at the back, Sally May, and Sue Houghton, and myself. And then we knew we had to get two more people. That whole recruitment process was quite another story, which most groups are interested in, but I'm not going into now. And then we have at the front Angela Swan, who used to be my assistant here at the scriptorium. Did I say Susie Leeper there? Yes. So what would happen is everybody brings their scrolls there. They go away, work away. Sally May was here all the time. And Brian and Sue and the others would take their rolls of vellum, which had been prepared by Sarah, whose hair you can see on the left or right. She sandpapered and ruled and put all the notes, made sure that the skins matched each other, and the aim being that no page is written by somebody else, so that every opening of 4 columns is allocated to the same scribe. Next. And then what I would do is, if you look at that, I don't know how well you can see it where you are, I can just, but on the left it says Susie, and on the right it's Angela, and I would sit with each one of the scribes, write down on the left A to Z or Z, and go through the whole thing and say this. And this is critique session, trying to find out why there might be any variation, or why it wasn't quite working. And we would deconstruct. I would sit quietly myself, deconstruct every consistent inconsistency. You see what I mean? It's we can all make different A's and B's and so on. None of us can make them all the same. And as you could see with the sample I showed at first. So what you do is you say, I go through it, I see things like, for instance, I see consistently that Angela on the right was not getting the arches in the M's and N's. She was just missing it. So the thing to do is, when critiquing anyone, is to say, what do you like about this piece of work that you've just done? And they trust you and they'll come out with it. And then you say, and what do you like about it? What do you like about it? And then you say, what don't you like? What you didn't think, what don't you think is working? And so you'll usually find that the student or the person you're talking to, these people are professional cleavers, they know. So they'll say, oh, I like it because of this. And that's the reason it is good. And they'll say, I don't like it because of this, and so on. but they need to be persuaded to make that extra little bit of effort to get out of a bad habit. And that went on as a routine every time they came back. And so that's how we all next ended up with pages looking like this. This is the aim. That is a spread that, an image of a spread that Sarah picked out, which has a lot of writing on it. And I had the fun of, when everything was finished, the pages were written and so on, I had the fun of just getting all my different colors mixed up and doing all the caps throughout the whole thing, just writing them in afterwards. It's quite a responsibility in case. There's a lovely little bug on the right-hand side at the bottom. That was part of my concept. Next, to bring nature into the Bible, and particularly at times flora and fauna, around outside the Abbey. And this little marmoset was not outside the Abbey, but this is one of our fun things where, yes, there's a mistake. And one whole line is missed out, because it's so easy when you're writing to look up, and there might just be the similar word in what you just did to one above you on that copy sheet that was being copied from, but it's the wrong line. And so you only find out when you get to the bottom and there's this whole line with nothing to write in it because you just missed it. And if you look closely at that image, you'll see the shadow of the line on the other side of the vellum, which shows you where it should have finished. And you should have had a line to write in it, but it's above. And so actually I can't see it because of all the stuff on the top, but you may be able to. So Chris Tomlin, who is this young natural history artist who has worked with us on the whole thing, and I sort of talked him through how we might rescue that missing line and pull it up and put it up at the top next. And likewise here, another similar mistake, another of the scribes. And on this occasion, Chris painted this very industrious bee, and Sarah invented the pulley and tackle and the rope to pull it up to where it came from, further above. So we had fun as well, and that is an attitude. Thank you. Like what I said last week was that we have to play, and that play becomes part of you. And when you come across something that you did wrong, or you've made a mistake, or you feel bad about it, you can always laugh your way out of it somehow or other. And that all of us ending, that's all six of us there, where Sarah just willy-nilly chopped 6 sections out of our different writing and put them together. And you look long enough, of course, you could see the difference. You can even, and in fact, each person put a little chop on there, so you could know who's done it. But that is near enough to keep that Bible turning with you involved in it. The rhythm of it. The quill is important here, because the imperfections and inconsistencies of the quill, whatever else, if it's mastered, not any of them were fully experienced at using a quill when they started on this project. They just took on the job of learning how to do it. And it is a warm, soft and sensitive instrument, not tied to a particular manufacturer's size. It's not a 6 or a 4 or a 2. It's what's needed. Next. So we start the dream. We go back. That was setting the thing. That's a calligrapher's way of looking at it. Now, what let me see, probably in 1994, I was playing. Sue Skarsgård sent out an invitation, come and play at Ghost Ranch in the high desert outside of Santa Fe, and just bring your dream project, bring the materials, bring your mindset to tackle the dream project that you've not got around to doing. And there was probably, I don't know, 14, 15 of us, and we worked for a week in that magical place in the frosts of the fall on the high desert, with other really good artists, and who all brought their own different dream project. Well, what dream project did I bring? I brought the Bible and an idea. This is obviously all before the St. John's Bible. And so I played around with this, and this next. And next, please. And I little leaves of gold gilded paper, and I was working on this idea of Christ in the wilderness. I was in the desert, and I was in the wilderness, and the colors were unbelievable, of the stones and the rocks and the sand and so on. So that was pushing me along. So I was having a good time. We also did a lot of drawing with unfamiliar materials. So when the St. John's Bible was being mooted, and I was trying to get them interested in it, they said, well, how would it look? And one of the things I did was I just stole from that play that I had been doing in the desert and put this together. And I said, well, it could be like this. We could have color, and because they were thinking it should be, you know, like a Victorian or even a medieval sort of Bible. They weren't really aware of what it could be like. Neither was I entirely, just trying to find my way. Next. And then as things progressed, they said, look, do something on vellum. Do it like it would look in the real Bible that you're suggesting. And I came up with, again, another version, advanced version of Christ in the wilderness. My focus, and there's a point to this, was on the angels. It says, suddenly the sky was filled with angels, and the devil was cast out, and here he goes at the bottom. And that was me looking at that. Remember, I talked about having in my commercial work been imitating TV commercials in order to make them a poster of them, and having to look really closely to focus on what was the key moment, the memorable moment of any TV commercial was with these cartoon characters. And I thought the moment was the angels. Well, I was wrong from the point of view of the theologians. Next. There's a detail of it here. I'm just doing this, you know, my thing, very angels, gold in the sky, the cathedrals in the sky, and clouds and angels, all that, the drama. But that wasn't it. The point of that Christ in the wilderness is not that the angels appeared. From the Catholic Christian point of view, is that it was the baptism of Christ. It's not what happened in the desert. It's him appearing from the desert, and John the evangelist, John the Baptist, baptizing him, my son in whom I am well pleased, God's appearance, and that's the key moment. So I had to get into this thing of being told what the key moments were and to bring those out. I was working to a brief, and the brief to begin with was not that precise, but we did. That was another evolving thing, that relationship between the Committee for Illuminations and Texts, which then made very clear to me where they were coming from, and I had to somehow or other interpret that. And so that became next. The focus from the angel to Christ in the water, having been baptized. And I used my storytelling instinct to think that John was the most important person up to them. I mean, he'd been the one who all the crowds were following. And at this point, having baptized Christ, you see the story, he has to walk away and leave all of that. The focus goes on to Christ. And so I had, this wasn't in the brief. I mean, I just worked out what it might feel like for me if that was happening. And so he's walking away, looking back with some regret, but he's leaving different things. So it's a different story next. And so that's how it all worked out. It wasn't the artistic view of Christ in the wilderness with the angels and the drama. It was focused on a new beginning, on the baptism. And that's how all these things were pulled together. Right, let me just check on where we are. And I think what we'll now do, if you can keep up with me, I said you were going to have to look, you're going to have to work tonight. Then the idea is to get into a rhythm. Read what they have to say, interpret it, get the comments back, then revise what you have to do if it's not hitting the mark. And sometimes we didn't agree. Now, I wasn't disagreeing on theology, but I could disagree on the way it was interpreted visually. The first page, which I showed you, have I shown you? Yeah. I don't think so. Let me just check. No, I haven't. It was the very beginning where I was with the menorah. Was that one?
I haven't seen that yet.
Hmm?
You haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it yet. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anyway, we'll come to that. So, yes, so we had kind of to wrestle into agreement. And so next, please. So I would start, that's it. No, I haven't got it. So I must have dropped it somewhere. There we are. Thank you. That's good. Thank you. So what happened was, at the very beginning, I wasn't given much in the way of instruction. All I was given was, this is the subject. You've got 20 days to do it, because that's the budget that we've allowed for it, and it's a full-page illumination. And the only description for what to do with the first page of the Gospels was, it should encompass the whole sweep of Jewish history and mark its place in transferring to the new order. And that was about it. There was no what's going on here is this, people believe that, da, 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 da. And so I just had to start and make it up. And it was the very first piece of illumination I did for the Bible. And I had nothing to go on really. And there was a lot of concern on the parts of St. John's. There'd been a long time going on while I was working out these scripts and getting all this stuff ready. Before the scribes had started, probably, and they're wondering, oh, maybe not, but they wondered what was the show for it. We're a year down the line. People are getting a bit fidgety over the cash they've been paying, and there's nothing to show for it. And so I'm floundering, and in one of my talks in this series, I said floundering's good. Well, it ain't comfortable, but it's good in a different way. It's very uncomfortable. And so I fiddled around all kinds of things. One in my mind was, I wanted to put my cards on the table right at the front and say what I believe is that there are many different roads to God, that people find their own ways and people find ways in different religions. And I wanted not to play down that my Roman Catholic Christian patrons, but to make the suggestion that acknowledgement that there were other faiths. And they were up for that. They're up for that all along. They chose this translation, which was not an approved translation necessarily at that point. It was one which is most used by other Christian traditions. And I started with that. I'm talking to one slide, I'm sorry, but I had nothing to go on much. But I did think, well, let's start with this menorah. And I made it out of cut-out paper from fragments of a Buddhist mandala. I wanted to bring in Hebrew text rather than all be in Latin, our kind of text. And I also, when I started work on it, thinking, well, all these people are the son of, or they, and then I was thinking, well, where are the women in this? Because that was one of the roles of this Bible, was to actually retrieve or highlight where it was right, the importance of women in the scriptures. And so they provided me with a translation of the wives or significant others of the significant male names. And I still didn't feel, as a child, I'd heard this, such a body begat, such a body begat, such a body, i.e., procreation. But a friend said, quite a few of those names are no better than they ought to have been. Such a body did this, such a body did that, and that person certainly wasn't married to that woman and at the time that baby, etc. And I thought, that's my family. That's everybody's family. That's all of us. In other words, what it's saying is, to me, we are all a family. And we take our different roads. At the bottom, you've got Hagar, who is the wife, the mother of Ishmael, and the ones to whom the Muslim tradition look as the beginnings of their connection with Abraham. And the story goes on. So the feeling that by using DNA, which you can't see there at that point, probably didn't even think of it at that point on that sketch, by using little gold filigrees with DNA symbols, I was actually saying, we now know we're all connected. We are all family, one way or another. We may have done our different things, we're going in different ways. And so that was that. So that put me into the swing. It put me into a oneness with the project. It made me feel that I could put something in there that would speak for us all. And that helped. And then, of course, eventually it became that. And there is in there fragments of these different religions. And what I then did was take parts of the architecture of that page on the left and construct out of that same multifaceted historical statement linking Christ with Abraham, with David, and so on, and made it into a cross, which shows, therefore, the tradition of the Hebrew tradition, and then mutating into the new order, the Christian one. So that was the start. And then I was able to get into the swing of it. I was frightened of certain aspects. Next, please. I didn't know how to paint people. I didn't know how to paint. And as it was, I tended to give the graphic projects, the ones which could use, do the communicating and interpreting with graphics alone, with lettering and so on, to Thomas or to Suzanne Moore, or to Sally May or, you know, or Hazel Dolby. I mean, I shouldn't be getting into names because, you know, I'll forget somebody, and I haven't forgotten Diane von Arx, who also, so those jobs I gave to people, and I was, in a way, stuck with the ones which are more figurative. And this is back to the theme. I didn't know I had it in me. I didn't. I was frightened. And I went to art school, but I didn't. I did draw, but I didn't ever paint. And so I found myself having to use this diaphragm a lot and smudge things around and pick out on the atmosphere. And so I gained courage, and I gained knowledge, and so did the committee with their briefs. That ring binder there, that will tell me, you know, the history, the meaning in the Catholic, that they like to weight it, and I would read that. I'd read the Bible. I'd mark it out. I'd look at the little dummy we created and try and imagine myself what to do next, and got into a rhythm. Next, please. And this will go a bit quicker. So I'll make notes to myself. Action, reaction. We're going back to the part where I'm going. Oh, yes. And so, you know, that was yes, that's right. I see. Sorry, this was the task was, how do we represent or evoke something called the visit to the Pharisees? What's it called? Dinner at the Pharisees. And Christ is invited to this sort of very formal dinner with all of the top people in the temple. And essentially it's gate crashed by this woman who was viewed she was very doubtful. I mean, in medieval times, always, you know, characterized as a prostitute, but in fact, when looking at it, she wasn't. She was unconventional, and she gate crashed, and she brings this jug of oil and bathes his feet next. So I tried to capture that, and I thought, well, what would happen now? So I put these guys in the back in dinner jackets or tuxedos, and her with beginnings of punk hairdo, and thinking, you know, that's how I started, quite stiffly, and then I said another version next, and you see the guys behind, horrified that she's just barged in and whipped out this bowl and started putting oil on his feet next, and changed it again a bit, and then eventually sent off next to St. John's. My sort of idea, you know, that actually taking out Christ, just implying him, concentrating on her. I actually, by this time, for somehow or other, I'd forgotten that it's a jug, or what's it called? Flagon, or whatever. And I'd made it into a bowl. I was thinking of washing his feet. And so I created mayhem. You know, the bowls of fruit fall on the floor, the whole Hebrew straight-laced tradition at that point was being challenged. That was the point of this. I mean, I'm not saying it should have been challenged, I'm just saying it was. And this is what was being represented. And so here's this unconventional woman gate crashing next. And so I implied it by putting Christ's voice there. I put I've changed the bowl, because the first thing that the committee said was, that's not supposed to be a bowl, it's supposed to be a jug. And so I made it into that. I gave her street colors, I gave her punk hair, and in the original sketch, I put in buildings, you know, nightlife, you know, because she was a street person. She was out there. And I used fabric of formal, and I used the prayer on the thing, and that's all being disturbed by the presence of this man next. And that became the finished piece. the Hebrew, and she's that. And there's the other challenge. How do you take a sketch and capture the freshness of that and retain it when you're putting it onto a sheet of vellum, which has already got probably hours and hours of other people's work on in the writing, or if not other illuminations. You are walking a tightrope. That whole project for everyone was stressful. There's pressure, and you have to learn to really promote that fun element inside yourself in order to keep going. Next. I'm not going on at great detail with a lot of these. I think, let me just see how many I've got. Oh, nearly there. No, I'm not. I hope you're all hanging in there with this, because this is an insider story of it. Sketches, sticking, taking what we call, Mylar is what it's called in the US, and taking, I want you to switch on to that for me, would you? Let's look at me for a minute. Not me, but at the camera, please, on the table. And so this is how I would go about. In those days, it was color Xerox. The only way you could get this kind of color effect and work on sketches, you couldn't just shove it into the old printer that you've got sitting by the computer. You had to do it physically, putting down real bits of grass and seeds, and then you take your sort of tree here, and then you start moving it around. Does it look all right there? Does it look all right here? I realize it's shining and you can't see it all, but then you have to start doing things like this. Take some plastic sheet, and then you fool around with it. Where does it fit? Will it fit here? In that point in time, I was doing the lettering quite big. This was very early in the thing. I was trying to and I was playing around with it like that, because here am I doing my thing of what is the most important thing, and it's this contact. She's putting her hand up. She's saying, "Oh, he's just come out of the tomb," and she wants to reassure herself that it is him. And so that was my weighing up. That is the key moment. And he said, oh, and he's recoiling, and he's saying, no, I don't, because I have not yet ascended. He's in this sort of limbo part. And so then I said that I sent that to the CIT. Thank you. I think we'll move off that, and we'll go back to this slide, please. And this is just representing a process. This is me taking what I thought was the artistic, or the core of it. There we have two angels, again, a bit high in my priorities, and she has got one hand to her mouth going, it can't be, that is what I'm trying to capture. And I was shuffling that, sent that to them. They sent back, said, well, no, the angels are too big. You've got the tomb behind, but they're too dominant. The most important thing is she and him. And so I thought, oh, all right. So then I made it smaller, which is on the right-hand side next. And then I said, well, wait a minute. For goodness sake, this is so difficult, because it all happens in the dark. It's first thing in the morning. It's before dawn. It's this, and this. And they said, "Oh no, it isn't. If you reread it, it says it was later. It was in the light. The people, she'd seen him run away." And I realized I had misread the Bible. I had misread the brief, and in fact, it was not dark. It wasn't mysterious. It wasn't gothic, which I was rather enjoying. But they said, it's joyful. This is Christ risen. And of course, there again, I was miles off, as I was with him in the desert. He should have been being baptized, whereas in fact, here is being risen. And so I made the color more joyful. I actually may in some ways preferred the drama of the other, but it wasn't doing what was said. This is a joyful thing. And the angels are there in the background, and they're looking into this and she is wearing fabric which was taken from some East Indian or Pakistani fabric, which I used that same fabric throughout the book. All the time I'm looking for little things that can feed on and give that sense of continuity. Next, please. This one, another challenge, bringing where this is the story of Lazarus, who's raised from the tomb after he died. And most of the pictures are looking in to see him coming out, whereas I turn it around, because the only knowledge I had of something like near death was my mother, who nearly died after a miscarriage, almost full term, when she was after she had 2 young boys already, and she said she felt she died, and she was never afraid of death, because she said, I've already been that close that I felt so good, and I was being welcomed into the light, and there was this wonderful circle of light I was being drawn into, and it was the doctor, only the doctor, the young guy, who was talking her out of it, talking her out of going to where it's so good, and talked about her young boys at home waiting for her to walk through the door. And she told me this as a very young child, I remember it. And so somehow or other I brought that into this, reversed it, brought him in. And then sometime afterwards, I was visiting with Mabel Venice, went into the Doge's palace and looking around at the paintings there, and on the wall was this painting by Hieronymus Bosch, and I just got goose pimples all over. I had never seen it before, and there was my near death. It's probably a completely different story, I wish I could tell you, but I didn't. But if you could see it, there is a tiny little figure, almost identical to the one that I had represented Jesus as being at the other end of it. Kind of strange. Next. Mistakes. Very bad mistake, in the sense that I had misread again the brief, and this is the Jacob's Ladder, the story of Jacob's Ladder, which I won't go into, and they said I'd overdone the butterflies. What were the butterflies doing there anyway? And I said, well, they personify angels for me. They're so fragile, they are strong and powerful. They float thousands of miles across oceans and come back again. And I think they are angels in nature. And yeah, they brought that to a degree, but I put too much I had. So this is a little bit more major surgery. So I have to scrape that off next. Then somehow or other smudge in some action behind. And I think I'm not going to be relaxed that much because a great big hornet is flying around, just flown into our open door. I'll live with it. What was it? I got to trust. And so they said and this is a reversal of things. It's unlikely to go anywhere away from the light, so it's all right. They're noisy anyway. So the reversal is they said we need more angels, which suited me very well. So anyway, so I put another angel in there, and here's me on a fully finished illumination, having to put some background color, get rid of the butterfly after scraping the excess paint off, and then with gold leaf burnishing onto it an angel. Just 2 of them. No.
can use your mouse to go to the next picture.
Beg your pardon?
You can use the mouse to go to the next picture. You can-
I can use the mouse. All right, then I'll click it. Let's see what happens. Yes, and finally, here's the angel being incorporated into the general picture with me. Ooh, that was close. And putting his halo on him.
Okay.
There we go. Back again, please. I'm sorry. Can you take me back one? Yeah, you know what? We may have to stop to get rid of this monster hornet that's buzzing around my head, but I'm forgetting it. Oh, there are two of them already. Oh, yeah. There'll be three if that door's left open, much more, I suppose. So, okay, look, let's just try and get there. So, don't get them excited. Don't do it. Just keep an eye on. Then that's all. All right. So we've got the angels on our side. So back another, please. And some things came easy. Some things came hard. The loaves and fishes, started and just poured out. It just happened. It just happened. And it was magical for me because it just worked. And in the whole point of it was that I got it, that this loaves and fishes is about giving love. It's about sharing. It's about taking what little you have and breaking it into smaller pieces and giving it to somebody else. And love has a way of spreading. And what we were putting into this project was love. And that cannot fail then to spread. And so the symbolism there was a little bit extra. I left spaces. And I put little black or navy blue, harsh geometrical symbols in there. The spread of the little loaves and fishes in gold and so on. You can't see it all on this image, but take my word for it. And the white spaces there up top left, for instance, I felt lay somewhere in between love and as it were, being unloving. So in one sense, I don't want to use the word sin and all that, it's been overused. But in other words, the term would be sinning by omission, by not doing something good you could. And the dark little chips of black or dark are when you really do stuff which is hurtful and cruel and definitely unloving, which I know I'm very well out. That's me, as well as the other. So that flowed, and that happens when you let things happen. And I'm going to sort of we're now. I don't know where we are. We're absolutely almost right. If we take off the first 10 minutes, we're gone over time. So let's just end with I'm just trying to decide which is best to end on for calligraphers. It's not a general talk. This is especially for you. So next, please. This is me constructing something. For the time being, our hornets, just to give you an update, are resting or stressing.
Yeah, they're fine. They're quiet in the corner.
They're quiet, and we'll let them. They will be freed later. Back one, please. This was me trying to capture the horror of the Valley of the Dry Bones by taking contemporary horror and putting it into it. The horror we are committing in the world by trashing it up with all kinds of junk, and the horror we perpetrate amongst each other by murdering and slaughtering whole bunches of people, most of the time, just because they're different. Next. And so where you do it, play with the cutout from the getting stuff from the internet, then trying to bring into it something else next, which is the rainbow, the symbolism of that, the rainbow is commonly symbolizes escape from being flooded and overwhelmed next. And creating again, you see with the mylar, moving things around, getting them in the right position, because you don't have too much of a second chance. You can't be putting it all on and scraping it off like you could with an oil painting, or indeed put the painting to one side and start another. This is all high risk. Next. But in that horribleness, there is hope, is the message. And that we can do. And you create it within yourself then. It came. I didn't know I had it in me. It was in me. Next. And there we have the whole page. And as it comes out, proclaiming from the worst can come the best. Next. Next. Looking in a sketchbook, always looking for ideas, pulling together things which belong in Minnesota into the Bible. And this is where Chris Tomlin did some wonderful work next. This is going on all the time that you're doing finished things, you're also cooking on other things and coming to little bits of your own kind of thoughts next. And cooking up more horrors, looking at those amazing things from Mexico, when Saint Catarina or something of that kind, the Day of the Dead or whatever it's called, and I had to make up my own monsters as well, things, my own demons, my own masks that I put on myself and hide behind, and so it's speaking for myself and others. Next. Playing with the letters, we're nearly there. Next, coming out with these, the fun times, coming up with stuff, inventing it. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work, but they all worked enough, and they fitted in the stripy N, and they're fitted in with designs, other kinds of designs on the page, and the artist could do that. One or two of them were done by the artists as well. Next. And I think I want to just, I think I'm just doing this to death a bit. So I'm trying to think of a way of skipping to the end. All I'll say this, I got more confident. Next. More fun, trying out different things in different spaces, writing with pure gold on the paint. Next. Creating whole atmospheres. Next, getting really quite enjoying the color of the book of Revelation, painting spidery lettering to evoke something. Next, that's how we started it. Printed the whole thing out, and I just used crayons to try to get the spirit of this particular thing. And I actually think that will finish with me at the board. After that, there we go, at the board, making myself frightened by painting praying mantis, which I really don't like, and I was painting those in. I was painting in disease, I was painting in despoilation, and which is, of course, the message that the Bible has, and then go on to next, please, and then the next. Oil, fighting over things, nuclear. I didn't have COVID, but I did have cancer, and I did have AIDS in different fragments. Real life, and and this is where I'm going to end, because we've just got to do it. We've just got to do what's in us. You know, I had a thought, which is that I was going to finish on, and let me just see if I can find it. And if I can't find it, I will remember it. I got it. Thank you. Which is on this. If you do what you love, if you do things that you love, you're going to have a really good way into teasing out access to that sixth sense. Do something you like, you open up. You're opening up. And then if you like to make shapes and letters or investigate them or that, then you are actually gladdening yourself. You're lubricating your entire system towards accessing what's in you, and you don't know you don't even know what's there. As I said, I didn't know I had it in me. I know you have it in you. And so put, you know, as I've been saying to you all along, put that pen in the ink and play with it pleasurably, and you'll open yourself up to immense power. All of that amazing memory bank, keep adding to it, and you'll keep growing in your work, and you'll be spreading that love around. I'm going to have to end now. You know, this is getting a bit bad, but I don't think we'll have time for questions. It sounds rather mean of me, but I just like to leave you with that, to think about. It's you. You've got it, and you can do it. I think, you know, I don't know, and you know, this is the last of the series, and one of the things that attracted me to doing this was partly because I like the challenge of, say, trying it, and I love the fact that as you started, when you came in, that you were all able to greet each other and friends and so on, and I obviously know a good number of the faces, and I enjoy that. And I think that's a brilliant thing. I think it's wonderful that Kitty came up with this idea, that got the support of the workshop committee, and Carrie and her team, and obviously with the great help of Christy to put this across. And this is, of course, the mechanism, joining with others to share. And that is the key thing, is sharing what you know, sharing what you don't know, and you in spreading it. And I'm finding it hard to stop, because because I don't want to say I don't want to answer questions, but I think I may have to do that. I'll leave it with you, and you can talk with each other afterwards if you've got the stamina after all this talk. And I wish you all well, and I hope we'll meet up again, if not in this way, but personally. And I thank you all for sticking with it, and keep up the good work. Pen in the ink, play. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
So Kitty, any last words? You're muted.
Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Of course, that was pure Donald, exactly the way we wanted to see him, sharing everything from his heart, encouraging all of us, as he always has done. It was a magnificent series of programs. I'm so grateful to the Society for Calligraphy for allowing us to do this, and we hope that we will have another fabulous Masters series in the future. And I'm just very happy that all of you came, that all of you are looking at the YouTube channel to review these programs and are sharing them with everyone who needs to get Donald's message. So thank you, Christy, for helping me with this. And thank you to the Society for Calligraphy. Nancy, I know you wanted to say something, but I think I had a little disaster at my studio here. And so the people are coming with blowers to get rid of the water and so on. So I'm sorry that I have to go, everyone, but thank you very much for being here with us. And please keep in touch. I put some links in the
They are.
at the door now. So I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Out the
Bye, everybody.
recording.
Bye-bye.
Good weekend. Hi, Bruce.
Hi
This was
there.
wonderful, absolutely
Nancy.
wonderful.
Mm,
And I
bye.
think that the fact that you were able to do it and carry it off and do it with someone who's speaking so openly and so personally revealing themselves and sharing their fears as well as their successes
Yeah.
was a real revelation. Thank you for the Society for the committee, Kitty, and thank you so much, Donald, for sharing your love and your hospitality to all of us. It's been a wonderful series, and I'm so glad that we have this master calligrapher on record. It's just amazing.
Fabulous. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you. It was
So
wonderful.
goodbye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye. Hi, Barry. Good to see you.
Hi. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Hi and bye. Catch
I
up
can-
soon.
I can leave this on 5 more minutes if people want to say hi to each other, or 10 minutes. Please feel free.
Just want to say goodbye and thank you.
Thank you very
Well,
much, everybody. It's been wonderful.
This is something I feel, that like, sitting in a remote corner, we wouldn't have ever got access to such information and such, in-depth, insight. And I thank the society for even organizing this, and all the wonderful people who taught us like this. Sharing this would be so wonderful for people all across the world. It's a huge motivation. And thank you, Donald, for sharing everything what you did with us.
Hello. Hello. Hello, girl.
Hey, Bill.
Bill Davidson.
Bill David. Oh my God, look at him. Look at Nancy. Do you recognize him?
Oh, geez.
No, I thought you were Father Christmas.
It's been good seeing a bunch of few people that I haven't seen for what, 40 years.
40 years, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had such a good time at St. Mary's College. I mean, we were like a trio of laughter and giggling all the time.
And always going for happy hour.
Oh gosh, it was a happy week.
Yeah, my association with Donald has been amazing. It's we became so close by the time I finished up being able to take classes from him. But this is great. This is just wonderful.
Yes, reunion week.
It
Yeah.
is indeed. But it's wonderful because we've had this strict lockdown, and here with Zoom, we can connect with people from all over the world at all different times of the day. I mean, it's just almost the best thing that technology has provided us is this Zoom.
Exactly.
Yep, it's just a bit early. It's 4 o'clock in the morning when this starts here in Sydney.
Oh, you're in Sydney. I didn't know you were in Sydney. Is that where you
Yep.
live?
I came over here to Australia in 2001.
Wow.
Been here for a long time.
Well, when I went to England, my first trip in 1976, after I got to know Donald in America, I stayed with his family for about a week. And I just loved England so much, so that when I came to marry David, he just said, well, look, England is a much more civilized country, and I think we should live there. And so I moved here, and it was just wonderful. I've just had a terrific experience, and that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't known Donald.
Yep. A lot of us, he just changed just the world. A lot of lives.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm doing things that I would never have done if I hadn't run across Donald and the craft of calligraphy.
Are you doing calligraphy now?
No, not much. No, I dabble. I play with it. I did sign painting for about 20 years, 25 years. I came over here to Sydney and worked in sign shops. I did a lot of drafting. I was a draftsman long before I started doing calligraphy. So I've gone back and forth, screen printing, sign painting, drafting, and managed to survive all these years by doing that.
You met Carl Roars doing sign painting, right, Bill?
Yeah, he was here in Sydney and he gave a little lecture about Georgia Deaver in Sydney.